Today I'm going to talk about the time that I skateboarded across America. Kind of. Didn't technically skateboard the whole way. We also hitchhiked and train hopped. And this is, if you've seen some of my videos before, this is the video where we ended up going to jail or prison for train hopping. But it was a lot of fun, and it all started with my friend Taylor and I. Originally we skateboarded, and it was his idea to skateboard from San Francisco to LA. And I wanted to go. It sounded like a great time, and so I wanted to join him and go do that. And when we did that, it took us 5 days, and it was an incredible experience, and I thought, this is the warm-up, we gotta go across America. So the next summer, we got one-way tickets to New York City, took off with nothing but a backpack and a skateboard, took a red-eye flight, and got there at like 5 in the morning. And then we were just kind of two 18-year-old kids roaming around the city, had no idea what we were in for, had never been to New York before, and we were just roaming around. And so we were just exploring the city, skateboarding, seeing. It was like just two kids in a foreign land that had no idea where they were or what they were doing. And we just, like I said, had the skateboards and backpacks on our back. We got to have some really interesting city experiences for sure, but I remember thinking it'll be really exciting and I'm stoked to get out of the city. So what we did was that night we went to Newark, New Jersey, which is across the bridge. And this is actually, some of these stories are relayed in some of my other videos where I'll talk about hitchhiking stories and scary things. But we went across the bridge and slept somewhere, I don't even remember, and got up the next day, got picked up by this terrifying person. I know I talk about this in some of my other videos, but this guy, this construction worker, was getting off work at like 6 a.m. and was yelling at us because we were two kids in the middle of one of the most dangerous areas in all of Newark. And anyway, he potentially saved our lives. So he drove us into the countryside, kind of. From there, actually, we ended up in Hackettstown, New Jersey, which was just, I don't know where it is, in the middle of nowhere. And it was raining, it was pouring so hard that night. We had skated probably, I don't know, a lot that day. But we had nowhere to sleep. And that was the whole point, is we were just planning to sleep at skate parks the whole way, but we didn't really think about rain. So we went into a 24-hour laundromat and spent the night there. We're in Hackettstown, New Jersey. This is our buddy Dave. He's doing laundry at 1 in the morning. It's raining out there, so we're camping out for the night. Then finally, I think at like 4 a.m. got kicked out by the people that were living there or owned the place. They were like, hey, you guys can't be here. That morning, our day got started pretty early. We slept for 2 hours last night in the laundromat. Now we're trying to make it to Woodward. Anyway, we walk out to the interstate, we start hitchhiking, we're making silly signs and just trying to get west. The whole goal was like, we don't care what states we go through, we just want to get west and let's just see what we can get into. So the whole entire goal of this trip was to just go to all the different skate parks and see what skate parks were out there across America. Pretty quickly we got picked up by the cops.
You guys mind riding with truckers?
No.
I'll give you a ride to the truck stop, which is like, save you about 15 miles of walking. That's awesome. Put all your stuff in there, we're gonna pat you down.
Okay.
In the back.
Hey, thanks a lot. The cops were like, what are you guys doing? You guys look mischievous, what's the deal? So they ended up driving us to a truck stop. We just got a ride in a police car. Now we have no idea where we are. At the truck stop, this is where you'll hear in one of my other videos about the hoarder lady that picked us up and moved all of her stuff out of her car and ended up driving us for way too far and kind of tried to kidnap us. And that was really creepy. But then the whole goal from there was like, okay, let's hit some skate parks, but let's also get to Woodward. We skateboarded, I think it took us 2 or 3 days to get to Woodward, Pennsylvania. And we ended up getting dropped off by the mail lady, and you'll see in this footage, the mail lady was driving like an old car, and it just goes to show you how out there in Pennsylvania Woodward really is. The mail men and women out there just drive normal cars with a thing that says mail on the top. But she dropped us off, and luckily we had had a good connection with Woodward, so they were very welcoming and let us stay as long as we wanted. That was the day actually I did a double backflip on my skateboard. It took me 108 tries. It took me 5.5 hours, 3 hours, and then another 2.5 hour session because the camera died, we had to take a break. But then we did that, and then maybe a day or two later, got picked up by somebody else, and they drove us further west out of Woodward and Pennsylvania. Some of the people that picked us up were so cool and so friendly. Some of them were trying to show us that they knew to skateboard. In Pennsylvania, I guess it's legal to ride in the back of a truck. Some people picked us up on the side of the road, said, hop in the back. We hop in the back. I happened to look up. We were hiding down anyway, just to not make a scene. And immediately, I just kind of peek up to see where we are.
We're in the back of a truck, and there's cops driving right next to us. And we don't know if it's allowed in Pennsylvania to ride in the back of a truck. Oh, he's behind us. We're
Next thing, we get pulled over. We're in the back of some random person's car. This police officer was just curious. We looked really young, and I guess you have to be 18 years old to ride in the back of a truck in Pennsylvania. They just wanted to check our IDs. And then I felt super bad because we were the cause of these people getting pulled over, and we don't want to affect anybody else's lives, and now here we are. So they ended up letting us go, and then they gave us a ride even further out to, wherever we were, just trying to get west. So eventually, I think a day or two later, we make it to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was so set on train hopping.
We've been here for a few hours now, trying to hop out on a train, but no luck. 2 hours later, we're still stuck here.
We eventually got on a freight train. That was the first freight train hop of the trip. And we rode it, I think 2 or 3 hours into Ohio. Eventually, somebody saw us on the train, called us in. We got arrested. We got held at gunpoint. The police officers and everyone involved thought we were terrorists. So we got called in as train terrorists. So we ended up going to a jail where they were interrogating us and treating us like terrorists. It was the craziest situation. Then we get brought to a maximum security prison because there was no room left in their county jail. I go into more detail, like I said, in another video where you can hear the fine details of this, but it was quite an interesting experience. We stayed in that prison for 3 days. I think 3 days, 4 nights, got let out the next morning.
Last update, we were on a freight train heading out from Pittsburgh. We got caught. We got ripped off the train at gunpoint.
We were in Alliance, Ohio, if you know where that is. My friend's cousins lived in Cincinnati, so the goal was, all right, let's just try to get to Cincinnati from here, maybe hang out with your cousin for a couple days. So we did that. He lived in the way backwoods of Ohio.
Dave, where are we at?
West Elkton, Ohio, middle of nowhere.
Tell me about yourself.
John Burge, 22 years old, just where I'm from.
It was really cool. There was so many nice, friendly people. We really got to take in the culture there. And then we were back on our skateboards 1 or 2 days later, and we skated across the bridge from Ohio to Kentucky.
Skating across the bridge from Ohio to Kentucky.
Just kept moving over towards Louisville. And then we got to go to the Louisville Full Pipe at the skate park there. I'd always wanted to check that out and finally got to go skate that. I was super stoked on that. I think in Louisville that night, our plan was to sleep at the skate park. And then we ran into some other train hoppers that invited us to their train trestle, and they were telling us these crazy stories about like the craziest stuff you've ever heard.
2 in the morning, Louisville, Kentucky. We just crashed out with some homeless people and then we bailed. We're gonna go to the skate park.
They were trying to kind of steal our bags from us and just being weird. So we're like, all right, we're out of here. So we go back to the skate park at 2 a.m. We decide to sleep on the vert ramp because that was the highest point on the skate park. So we go to bed at 2 a.m. and little did I know, on a summer night in Louisville, the most popular hour that we saw at the skate park was 4 a.m. We didn't really get much sleep that night. Finally, maybe 6 a.m., I'm passed out. My friend Taylor looks down and there's a guy collecting cans. It woke him up on the bottom floor of the vert ramp. I just remember Taylor waking me up and being like, hey, get ready. And this guy was walking up the steps with his face just completely bloody, just completely covered in blood, collecting cans. And we're like, okay, we're in for something. And then my friend Taylor was like, hey, don't come up here. You can't come up here. And we were kind of getting ready for whatever, and the guy listened to him, so that was kind of that. So we kept heading west from there that morning. I think we got to St. Louis, Missouri. Oh, that's when we got picked up by the guy that just got out of prison, and he was headed up to see his wife. He's like, yeah, I'm staying in a halfway house, and I'll give you guys a ride wherever you need, let's go. And so we jump in his car. We were on a 3-person bench seat in a Ford Ranger, almost crashed so many times. It was pretty terrifying. And we were kind of scared in general, all right, let's just be really cautious and nice. This dude's pretty scary. and he ended up driving us 2.5 hours north, just up into Iowa, like completely in the wrong direction. So now we're in the middle of Iowa. We're just kind of like, now what? We walk into this pizza shop for lunch, and we're telling these guys what we're up to. The pizza delivery guy was so nice. He's like, man, what are you guys doing? Like, there's not really anything from here. We're in the middle of Iowa. The next town is like 500 miles away. What are you guys doing? And we're like, we don't really know. We're just gonna skate as far as we can. We'll camp out somewhere. The pizza delivery guy drove us probably 20, 30 miles in the back of his truck, just out into the cornfields, just as far as he was willing to drive us, which is so nice, so thoughtful. Such a nice guy.
But yeah, most guys who are doing something like this is awesome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
That's me, I'm Jake.
Jake and Trevor.
How we doing, man? Yeah, you guys. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Epic pizza, man.
Oh, thanks guys.
Hey, have a good rest of your day.
I remember that day and the next day, we skated all day. 50 miles a day probably, through the cornfields, nothing, literally nothing out there but corn and tractors and people just doing farm stuff.
What tips do you have for us? Drink plenty of water. All right. There's nothing here but nothing.
I didn't realize how much land there really is across America, and there is a lot of wide open space out there. We just ended up skating and skating and skating into the sunset, camped out wherever we could find. We showered in the sprinklers a couple times of these cornfields that were watering the fields. I think we caught a couple more rides and made it into Nebraska. And we would just get a ride with someone here, get a ride with someone there, skate super far, and then finally this person dropped us off. But wherever we were on this stretch in Nebraska, we literally had no other option but to skateboard on the interstate. And so we're like, well, we don't have any other choice. So we just started skateboarding on the interstate. Police come up behind us and they're like questioning us. At the same time, this guy picks us up. So the police officer stops and this guy picks us up at the same time, where he's like offering, hey, I'll give you guys a ride. And then the police officer was like, we're all kind of having this interaction. It was pretty cool.
Dark. And then okay. I cleaned out this side and the front side, and it's right. Dirty, but it's better than pushing those things. Yeah. I appreciate you stopping too. All right, you guys. All right, man. Have a good night. Matt giving us a ride across Nebraska. Well, almost. Almost got stopped by the statey, but we got it done. I was gonna stop, and then I was like, no, and then I was like, you know what? Fuck that, dude. I seen him at the gas station. If it was a dude walking with a beard and looks homely, I've never done it, but fuck it, they're young.
And so he gave us a ride, was the coolest guy, and brought us to his house, was like trying to just offer us food, and you know, he wanted us to stay with him. It was like the nicest, he was just the coolest guy. We're like, no, we gotta keep going, thank you so much. So he showed us his local area, which is like, you know, the smallest little town off the interstate. And it was really cool to just soak in some of that culture in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. And so from there, we hopped a couple more trains. We were trying to get into Colorado. I had some friends that lived in Denver and the surrounding areas, so we were pretty excited to get to Colorado because that was like a staple, like, whoa, we've pretty much made it almost to the west part of the United States. And that was really exciting. There's a lot of amazing skate parks in Colorado, so it felt really good to arrive there. We went and sessioned a few of the local, really fun skate parks. That was a great time, and we had a lot of fun. At that point, a bunch of family and a bunch of friends were in Lake Powell, and that's in Utah and Arizona. And so the goal from there, we spent some days in Colorado. It's like, okay, let's go meet our family and friends in Lake Powell. At that point, my friend had decided to stay in Colorado and go hike a mountain with one of his friends there. So I just took off solo from there, hitchhiked, skateboarded, made a few new friends along the way, met my family in Lake Powell, had a couple fun days with them there. That was awesome. As soon as I got dropped off at the dock, I had no idea what I was gonna do or where I was gonna go. This guy was loading up his stuff at the marina in Lake Powell. And I'm like, yeah, this is my plan. I'm trying to get back to LA. And he's like, I'm going to California right now.
Why are you afoot?
Oh, yeah. No, my parents and my family were out on the houseboat.
Yeah.
And then I came up and met with them, and then now I'm heading west again. Up until now, I've been hitchhiking from New York City.
No kidding. All the way to here.
Skateboarding and hitchhiking.
You met up with your family.
Yep. And then now I'm heading all the way home.
And so this guy drove me all the way across to California, and me and this guy just vibing out for like 12 hours or however long it took. Made it all the way home. He dropped me off kind of in, you know, downtown LA, which is not really where I was, but my goal, we wanted to jump in to the Atlantic Ocean and then jump into the Pacific Ocean. And so it was really cool to be back in California and really finish off the trip in that way. I was so adamant on just going and jumping into the water and kind of solidifying, you know, the East Coast to West Coast, coast to coast adventure. This trip took us exactly 1 month, exactly. And I got back on June 21st, 2011, and that was Go Skateboarding Day, which was really exciting. And overall, it was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful I did it. I probably wouldn't do it again today, just due to kind of the circumstances of how risky it was, how scary it was, and certain situations we got ourselves in that could totally have been avoided, but we made it out alive. Very grateful to share this story with you. It was a ton of fun. At 18 years old, it made me grow up pretty quick just to realize these real life experiences and, you know, what's really going on out there in the world as far as just interaction and, you know, just dealing with people and situations and how we're gonna get here and what we're gonna do here. And there was a lot of different little life learning tasks that were involved in this trip that really made it a great time. That's about it for this story. Thank you so much for listening. Much love. We'll talk to you next time.